This is prophecy.
I'm talking about that.
What do you? Oh, thank you. Did you just tell me, Mike? Now you know it's bad when the baby start telling you, Mike. He's training them. That's how communication. All right, guys, we're back here with a continuation of part 3. So before we start, let's just have prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we come before you again. We thank you for your mercy and for your love and your grace. And we pray, Yah, that you be with us as we continue this study here, the message today that you have given pertaining to Daniel chapter 11. Pray that you help us to discern and understand, help it to resonate into our hearts and minds. This and all of the blessing we ask in thy son, Yahushua, HaMashiach name we do pray. Amen. Okay, so we basically left off here. Is it ready, Eric? Okay. Okay. So this is verse 38, beginning of verse 38. So can I have somebody read verse 38 now? Somebody read to me verse 38. Verse 38.
I got it.
Okay.
11:38. But in his estate shall he honor the Yah of forces, and a God whom his fathers knew not shall he honor with gold and silver and with precious stones and pleasant things.
Okay. So when we look here, honor of the God of forces. So forces, according to H4581, which is also H5810, means a fortified place, figuratively a defense, force, rock, strengthen, stronghold, or to be strong, moral, mental, or military, used to change, persuade, exert influence on others. Okay? So forces is sometimes translated as fortresses. Yah, or God of forces, can also be translated as the forces, protectors, mediators of God, and God's protector and mediator. I'm using that in this terminology because we're talking about this here, papacy. Papacy has always supported powers who would put military or governmental powers at the papacy disposal to further their end. They've always done that. Also, to see it as Yah's protector or mediators can point us directly to the papacy's stated role as vicar of Christ and their belief that the Pope stands on earth as Christ's substitute to administer Yah's will for his assembly and man. So the role of the priest as mediator, the ability to forgive sin, and the worship of the saints all point to the papacy placing themselves in a position of honor that is only due to Yah alone. Go 1 Timothy 2:5. Hey, Rich, didn't you have something before we left last time? Was it in Psalms?
Oh, yeah, Psalm, you talking about Psalm 95:3?
Yeah, I want to read that right after this one right here. It says,
Okay.
you can read that one. It says, for there is one Yah and one mediator between Yah and men, the man who? Yahushua HaMashiach. That's it, just one. And he was not placed here to substitute for Yahushua here on earth, okay? The mediator is a mediator of Yahushua HaMashiach, not this right here. So, what was that verse you were going to read, Richard? If it's in Psalms?
Psalms 95:3.
Psalms 95:3?
Yes.
Okay.
For Yahuwah is a great Yah and a great king above all gods.
So there is no, you notice it says small g there. So, God's, you basically can put anything, you put anything in front of him, it's like God's. Small g. People put their houses, put their cars, they put people, they put their children, they put their husbands and wives, they put their family, they put everybody before Yah. If you put them before him, then you ain't worthy of him. That's what he says. That's from him. So, moving forward.
Yeah.
Yes.
What does Hamashiach mean?
Messiah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out when they put it before.
It don't matter if they say Christ Jesus or Jesus Christ. Either way, Yahushua HaMashiach is talking about the same person.
Yeah, was just trying to figure out why they would put it sometime in front of it. Just trying to find out what that word meant.
Yeah, Eric just reminded me because I had forgotten that in the Hebrew, they read backwards, Grady.
Oh, okay, okay.
I had forgot all about that, but they read from right to left. We read from left to right.
Right,
I have books
right.
back there. I got books back there now in Hebrew, and they read from right to left.
Brother Birch, I know that the coordinates for gods is H430. It also can refer to the angels.
Oh, okay.
Small G.
Which one?
953 and the word gods.
Which word you talking about?
Gods.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it can be referred to for angels as well.
Okay. So you got to make sure you put it in the right context. Okay. So here we go. Continuing on. We read this earlier about the canonization of the saints, so we have to go through that again. So, right here. So a God whom his papacy, fathers knew not, shall he, papacy, honor with gold and silver and precious stones and pleasant things. Obviously, a reference to the ultimate counterfeit to Yahushua, which is none other than the Virgin Mary, who has been highly exalted in the Catholic Church, and Pope John Paul II dedicated his entire pontificate to her. Go over with me to Luke 1, for example. This is where they get it from. Luke 1. And Luke 1, verse 28 in particular. Verse 28. This is the verse where they make Mary equal with Yahushua right here in this verse here. This is what they say. Verse 28. Luke 1, verse 28. And the angel came unto her and said, Hail, thou that art highly favored. Yahuwah is with thee. Blessed art thou among women. Do you all remember somebody else being highly favored in heaven? Wasn't there somebody else that was really highly favored? No, no.
No.
Remember, I think they might have used different words.
What, Lucifer?
No. And let me find it for you. You might have used different words. Oh, even better words. Go to Daniel chapter 9, verse 23. You got it? Somebody else that was highly favored. Daniel. And we already know David was a man after his own heart, right? But this one here, look what it said in verse 23. Chapter 9, verse 23. At the beginning of the supplications, the commandment came forth, and I am come to show thee, for thou art greatly beloved. Therefore, understand the matter and consider the vision. He's greatly beloved. This is Gabriel talking to him. He's greatly beloved. I don't remember anybody saying he's a mediator down here. He was greatly beloved. Let's go back to that verse. Just because his Lord is with thee, blessed art thou among women. Where did that make her now co-redemptive or co-mediatrix with Yahushua? Huh? Just saying he's faithful. She was blessed. She's carried the Savior. It was placed there by the Ruach. So she was, special just like Daniel, just like others were special. But it wasn't you don't take the place of or equal to. But, that's kind of the things how the path that they took, they being the Catholic Church in essence. What's that?
It's the same as when John the Baptist came. He was a lesser light than when Yeshua came. He wasn't less important, anymore, because now Yeshua came. So like Mary, she was always favored while she carried Yeshua, but actually delivery, Yeshua come more important.
Yeah, but wasn't there a verse that says that there was no man born of a woman? Something to this effect. No man born of a woman as John the Baptist. And even the least in heaven is greater than him. Isn't that something that says that? Yeah, that's in the New Covenant. That was John the Baptist. Now, look here. Does he not engage himself with gold and silver and precious stones and See, this verse is telling you about Pope. Telling you about the papacy. Those verses that we've been reading, 36, 39, just giving us a glimpse of the character of him.
I got something too.
You got something? Read this. These gods, they honor with millions of pounds worth of jewelry. Costly shrines have been multiplied in every part of the world. That speaks for itself. Idolization. Was that Eric?
I got something when it says gold, silver, and precious stones in Daniel.
Yeah.
It's another way you can connect it to how you notice the end times, because it's the same thing mentioned in Revelation 18:12.
Right, 18:12. 18:12. Let's go there. 18:12. Revelation 18:12. Okay.
And it says, the merchandise of gold, silver, and precious stones. That's the very first three things it mentioned. The same thing as gold, silver, and precious stones. And then it mentions pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, scarlet, thine wood, manner of ivory, vessels of precious wood, and brass, and iron, and marble. You see the first three things, exact words. Gold, silver, and precious stones.
Silver, and precious stones. Same thing. Exactly the same thing. Gold, silver, and precious stones. That's a good one. So this is talking about end time. And not only it's talking about end time, we know who it's talking about. Because when you go over to now, turn the chapter over to 17. Now go to 17. And who is the one in verse 4 that's arrayed with purple, scarlet color, decked with gold and precious stones and pearls? Who is that? Right back here again. This system, right here. That's the woman. In Revelation 17, the woman is the Catholic Church, the system. When it talks about that woman on top of the beast, see, that means the beast is directing the woman, right? The horse is directing the woman, right? So that beast, I'm saying a horse, but that beast is Satan. The beast is Satan because he's the one who gave power to her. So she is riding, the papacy is riding on top of the beast in Revelation 17. That's how we know 17 is it's transition now. The beast originally in 13 was the papacy, the sea beast, because it came out of people. See, Satan didn't come out of people. He was a created angel. See, sea means people, right? 17:15 tell you that. And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the horse sitteth are people in multitudes, nations, and tongues. The people. So that sea beast came out of people. We already talked about Rome, pagan Rome, and how the papacy came about it all the way from Daniel 7. We already know he came up out of it. It came up out of those 10 horns that came up out of the pagan Rome. A little bitty horn came up and devoured 3 of them. Papacy. Same thing. So the papacy is mentioned in Daniel. The papacy is mentioned in Revelation. It's mentioned in 1 Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians. It's mentioned in different places. So it's important for us to understand it. So here is gold, silver, and precious stone, and pleasant things. Continuing on, verse 39. Somebody read 39 for me. Verse 39.
Thus shall he do in the most strongholds with a strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. And he shall cause them to rule over many, and shall divide the land for gain.
This right here, Wyoming, Nebraska state line, Our Lady of Peace, sculpted by this Robert Frieda, is the largest sculpture in Wyoming, and with the 7-foot pedestal. The pedestal is 7 foot. So this right here is 7 foot. It is the largest Marian memorial in the United States. The sculpture weighs 180 tons. A ton is 2,000 pounds. So it weighs 360,000 pounds is what it weighs. And stands just over 30 feet tall. So that's 3 basketball rims tall plus the 7 feet. So in essence, 37 feet. So that's how tall. When you going over Wyoming, Nebraska, see, I wasn't at the Wyoming, Nebraska when I was traveling. I wasn't at that, so I didn't see that. But it's saying when you enter it, that's what you'll see. So even in places where there's seen no desire to follow the pagan practices of Catholicism, has Mary worship begun to take hold. In fact, in the religion of the American Indians and the Tibetan Dalai Lama, and even the Hindus, are the prophecies and expectancies of a woman who is to come and bring peace to the world. Thus, the world has been prepared in the most unexpected places to accept Catholicism as the world's spiritual leaders. It's like subliminal messages, basically. So if you fall in a woman, you believe a woman's going to do this, do that, then it's not difficult to believe if when Catholicism come into play and you start talking about the Mother Mary and all this stuff, it wouldn't be hard because they already believe in that. Shall acknowledge and increase with glory. There is a large-scale movement within the Catholic Church to establish the Virgin Mary in an exalted position of co-mediatrix, co-redemptive with Christ. That's been going on for as long as I can remember, though. They're making her equal with Yah, God the Father, Son, and Mary. Now, you got the Trinity, of course, what they call the Trinity. I don't believe in the Trinity. I don't believe in that doctrine of the Trinity. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. That scripture doesn't teach that like that. Is Yahushua Yah? Yeah, he's Yah. Because the scripture, he says it himself. He's the Father are one. Even the Father calls the Son Yah, right? Did you all know that? Go over with me to Ezekiel 1. No, not Ezekiel 1, but not Ezekiel 1. Hebrews 1. Go to Hebrews chapter 1 and read verse 8 and 9. We talked about this one time. I don't know if it was through a Bible study or through one of the Sabbath services or something. But this is mentioned before. Listen to this. Hebrews chapter 1, verse 8 and 9. Even the Father called his Son Yah. I think that pretty much is a wrap right there. 8 says, but unto the Son. Okay, but unto the Son, who is the Son? Then it says, who could he be? Thy throne, O Yah, is forever and ever. A scepter of righteousness is the scepter of thy kingdom. Thou have loved righteousness and hated iniquity. Therefore, Yah, even thy Yah, have anointed thee with the oil of gladness above thy fellows. Even the Father calls him Yah. So he, papacy, he, who is the papacy, shall cause them to rule over many and shall divide the land for gain. Millions of Roman devotees are held in bondage by this worship of saints and the Virgin Mary, by these idols and these images. Because you know all this stuff is in their houses. A lot of them have this stuff in their houses. And there's actually Protestants that have stuff in their houses. See, that's the interesting thing. It ain't more than just the Catholics. More than the Orthodox Roman, or I should say the Orthodox Russians, or the Coptic, I believe they call it, Coptic Egyptian Catholics. More than just them, but also some of the Protestant churches. People from the Protestant churches have Catholic symbolisms in their house and idols in their house. The papacy claimed the right to divide the entire world amongst whom it pleases. Take, for example, the fact that when Normans, under Henry II, took Ireland, it was Pope Adrian IV who gave him permission to do so. Also, in regard to the New World discoveries, the entire New World was divided by the Pope between the Spanish and the Portuguese. See that right there? See how he divided that up? And he done it in many other places too, but this is one of them right here. He gave the authority for those nations, Spain and Portugal, to be divided the way they are. He gave the okay for all that. It just amazes me how a religious figure like that has that kind of power. Here we go. He, papacy, shall cause them to rule over many and shall divide the land for gain. Same thing that's getting ready to happen again. Did you know that the European Union was an experiment that had long been planned by those behind a one world government? The ideal is that if the European Union proved the success of political and economical integration, then this model could be repeated across other world regions. Now we have the African Union and the coming North American Union. Other regions are still at the economic union only stage, but it is much easier to start off with economic union, followed by political union, rather than the other way around. Start off with the economical thing first. Get everybody on board with it. Then the political thing comes in. It's better to do that than all of a sudden just using politics and then going to economics. Better to go economics first is what they're doing. That's why you see cashless systems out there. When you go over to Sweden, I think we looked it up, right? It's about 99% now cashless. And there's other countries in the world that's becoming cashless. Everything's working to a purpose. One world government, one world religion, one world control. And you all know that happened one time before, back in the days of Tower of Babel. And it failed then, and it's going to fail again. So, one should also not be fooled by the present chaos in Europe, as this is part of the agenda for tightening political and economic unity known as the Hegelian concept. The principle of creating the chaos necessary to justify the changes needed for a required end. Get this group over here, mad with this group over here, get them at each other, then you come in to do the rescuing. That's what the Jesuits set up way back in the beginning when they first came in. That's where that comes from, the Jesuits. You get you get the union against the corporation, get the corporation against the union, then you come in and settle it out. Now you look like the resolver. Everybody's looking at you now. 10 kingdoms. The Club of Rome. I don't know if you ever heard of that. The club, some of you online have, I know. It's called the Club of Rome. The intent is to divide this world up into 10 parts. See those 10 parts? That's how they plan to divide it. Isn't that amazing? It's not 8, it's not 9, it's not 11, it's not 12, it's 10. Which goes along with the 10 kings of Revelation chapter 17. This week report, when it says this week, this was in May 2019 though. This was in May of 2019. It was written in 2012, but it was updated in 2019. But this week report takes a look at the ongoing progression of what is known as the Club of Rome model, a plot to destroy the sovereignty of individuals and independent nations and replace it with a form of government in which the powers to create and enforce laws across all of the countries in the world will reside in just 10 committees. If those committees elect a leader, then one could take this further and say 10 leaders, but we know scriptures point to such an appointed individual to be the head. We're talking about this king of the north right now. King of the north. Down at the bottom, Revelation 17, 12, and 13 is where it talks about those 10 kings over there in Revelation 17. Let's go there. Go to Revelation 17 for a minute. Revelation 17. And when we get ready to do this series on Revelation, we're going to be going really in details in all these chapters again. Okay, so right now we're just doing it for this message here so you can see that it mentions about these 10 horns, these 10 kings. And you already know horns represent kings. We knew that from Daniel. When Persians, when Greece with the horns said they're kings. So these kings, right, these horns are kings, kingdoms. So when you look at it, verse 11 says, and the beast that was and is not and yet is the eighth and is of the seventh and goeth into perdition. Of course, that is Satan. And we're going to get into that when we get to this chapter. Verse 12, and the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings for 1 hour with the beast. That ought to let you know how long that's going to last. Not going to last long. But moving right along. So, he, the papacy, shall cause them to rule over many and shall divide the land for gain. We just read those verses right there. So keep in mind, this beast in Revelation 17 is the devil, from whom, according to Revelation 17:3, the woman is riding upon him. This woman is the Roman Catholic Church, led by the Pope, but got her power from the dragon and devil in Revelation 13:4. Go to Revelation 13:4. Revelation 13:4 says, and they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? So they got power from the dragon who gave her the power. It makes sense why she, called woman in Revelation 17 and sea beast in Revelation 13, is riding on him, because the dragon is really calling the shots. And he's the one behind the scenes. Revelation 17:16 makes it clear that the beast of Revelation 17 is the devil. It makes it pretty clear to me that it is the devil itself. It says in Revelation 17:16, and again, we're going to get into deep depths of these when we start doing these chapters again. And the 10 horns in verse 16, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. You got more of that in Revelation 18, so you know it's not talking about the devil, because when is the devil going to be destroyed? After the 1,000 years. So this is talking about the woman. This is talking about the woman who is the beast over there in chapter 13, the sea beast, which is the papacy, the Roman Catholic system, the church. Going back to Daniel 11, 36 to 38, these verses expand on this little horn or beast or papacy, giving us more details about his characteristics. And now verse 39 gives us a little more details, but also allows us to see how he is using resources to do his bidding. While the possibility of the New World Order is in the works as we speak, the them up the top and cause them to rule will be these 10 kingdoms. As scriptures, Revelation 17:12, call the 10 horns, we know from Daniel 8:20 and 11, horns mean kings and kingdoms, which will have a leader, the papacy, who got his power from the dragon. The Pope will eventually relocate to Israel, which is the Middle East again, after the abomination of desolation is in place at the time of the end. At the time of the end. It all falls in place. See, the papacy claims it can forgive sin. Everybody knows it. Everybody that knows this, Catholic know it, everybody knows it. This ain't nothing new. Everything the papacy does is for gain or for a price. It claims it can bring forgiveness for a price. It can help the dead who are supposed to be in purgatory for a price. And if for a price, it can sprinkle water on infants. Mark 2:10. But that we may know that the Son of Man have power over earth to forgive sin. He saith to the sick and palsy. Remember, only Yah can forgive sin. Even though the people back then was accusing Yahushua as being blaspheming. That's because they never accepted him. So to gain plenary, which is small groups of meetings, indulgences, a person must exclude all attachment to sin of any kind, even venial sin, which denoting a sin that is not regarded as depriving a soul of divine grace. So I guess they must have got some kind of list of what those are. I don't know. Must perform the work or say the prayer for which the indulgence is granted, and must also fulfill the 3 conditions of the sacramental confession, the Eucharistic communion, and praying for the intentions of the Pope.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
When you was talking about that, how you can do things for a price, that sound like Judas.
Oh yeah, yes, exactly like Judas.
Yeah, he turned Yahushua in for a price.
For a price. Yep, sure did. Absolutely. Here we go. Both St. Clement of Alexandria and his pupil, and we got to develop a view of a purification after death. Who's in there? Look who's there. Clinton and Bush. Both Bushes and Clinton. The man is dead. Okay? Dead. Gone. Dead. Over here, baptism changed from immersion to sprinkling in 1311 AD. Look over there, sprinkling the babies. Christening. This is all in the church. They've been 1.3 billion Catholics worldwide. And again, there's some Protestant churches that sprinkle. The one I came in sprinkled. The one I came out of sprinkled. And that was Methodist.
You think if he had that much power, he ought to be able to bring himself back to life?
Grady, let me ask you something. Do you remember whether or not the Methodist Church do they still christen or sprinkle?
I don't know. I don't know because I haven't been with them in a while, so I don't know what they're doing now.
I'm gonna have to pull that up when we get through today. I got to research that real quick to see, because I never was baptized or immersed in the Methodist Church. Grady, you weren't either, right?
Yeah,
But that was
Pastor
later on.
Harris.
Huh?
Yeah, that was later on with Pastor Harris. We did it in the Methodist Church.
Okay, now tell him what happened to Pastor Harris.
He left the Methodist Church
See what I'm saying? Why?
because they had him in a box.
Because he didn't believe some of the doctrines they were teaching.
Yes.
That's the reason why he wound up leaving. I wasn't there when he was there, but I just know it from Grady. You telling me that. He wound up leaving.
He left. I left with him.
You and Uncle Omar and a bunch of other ones left with him.
Yes.
If you buck the system, that's what denominations are. I'm telling you, when you buck the system's gonna buck you out. That's what this is reality. Not just the Methodists, all of them. Because I know some other denominations that they've removed ministers out of place.
That's right.
Because they went against their doctrine. And that is the reason why we follow the doctrine of Yahushua and not the doctrines of religion and denominations. Because you get stuck in a box and you stuck there and you can't come out. If you can't think outside of that box, we got to think outside the box. If we didn't think outside the box, we wouldn't be where we at right now. Thank Yah.
Yes.
We got to think outside of the box. I remember hearing, first time I heard that terminology when I was at school, university. I heard a guy, and I thought it was funny. He said, we got to think out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
I say, what box? I'm thinking to myself, what box? Now I know what he's talking about. You got to think outside of what you're already thinking about, whatever it is you're thinking about. Whatever you believe, you got to get outside of that. You stay in there, you're going to do just like that. You're going to follow traditions and everything else.
Hey Jim?
Yes.
In the Baptist church, if you act up, the people will put you out.
That's true too. Huh? Vote and throw you out. If you go to some of the YouTube videos of some of these Baptists, they have physically took them people out of the church.
Yes, sir.
Some of them, they vote you out, but they throw you out too.
That's right.
Oh my goodness. You know why I want to read it? Because they tied into the ABC, what do they call it? The American Baptist Conference. Some of them tied into the Southern Conference, these different ones. But they're more independent though too. So they kind of can control their own thing. In other words, the ministers get paid based on the congregation pretty much. So I don't know how it is now, because I never really followed. I knew about it back then, but I don't know about it now because I don't ever go into any of that stuff now.
Yeah, because they vote you in. It's like you come and I can't think of the word to use, but they have certain ministers come and preach, and then they vote on who they want. So they can vote the minister in who they want, and then they can vote him out if they don't want him no more.
If they don't want him anymore, right? That's it. I've always been wondering when you get into this voting stuff and that's putting it in the hands of man, right?
Yeah.
Man is the one that's controlling that, right? He's the one that's ordaining them. So if I'm 100 miles away and I need to be immersed, I'm going to turn my life over to Yah. And there's a man there who's not affiliated with any ministry, but he's speaking what thus said the Lord because you proved the things that he said. But he can't immerse me because he got to immerse me by somebody that's been ordained. You show me that in the scriptures. Show me in the scriptures where, matter of fact, I'm not saying it can't be done because it can. You don't see example of a pastor baptizing. Give me an example of a pastor in the scriptures baptizing or immersing. I can give you one of a deacon, Philip. When he took the eunuch down, immersed him. He wasn't a minister. He wasn't a pastor or nothing. Now what? Because who gives you the authority is Yahushua HaMashiach. That's who gives you authority, not man. That's the problem we're talking about right now. Man controlling. This is exactly what we're talking about right now. He's immersing or sprinkling these little children, And the people don't even understand that. And they up there celebrating the purification of a dead man. And some of these people will argue with you and fight you over this. So,
Hey Jim, I don't want to stay off track, but I just want to say this one thing. We went to a friend of ours. This was before I got back with you. It's been some years ago, but we went to a funeral and it was in a Catholic church, and they gave everybody communion except for the pastor that was with us. They would not give him communion, and I don't know why, but they refused to give it to him.
you said a pastor?
Yeah. It was a member. That was when I was with Typhus, and one of the members' mother passed, and she was a Catholic.
Oh,
so
okay.
we went to her funeral, just to support her, and like I said, they give everybody communion
support the
except
family.
for Typhus. They would not give him communion.
What about you all?
Yeah, they gave it to everybody, but him.
The only thing I can think of has something to do with the leadership, I guess.
I guess I don't know. I
That's
don't
the only
know
thing
what was-
different. What else is different? He's the leader of you all.
Yeah.
But I always heard the other way. I always heard the other way too, that they wouldn't give communion to anybody that wasn't Catholic. That's what I used to hear. I don't know how true that was, because I only been in the Catholic church one time, and I said I wasn't going to go anymore after I went there that one time for a graduation. I'm looking at there's gargoyles and stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
like up in the corners, gargoyles and all this kind of.
Yeah, statues
It
and
was in
stuff.
Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. That big one up there. Went in there one time because they had a graduation. And I went there. I told myself, I ain't going to step in the devil's workshop again like that again. I know there's some hard words to say, but that's what I felt like at the time. Can't do that again.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be graduating without me there. Because I'm not going to walk in something like that. I mean, you got gargoyles. I'm sitting in this whole thing looking at gargoyles. I mean, literally looking, like the Mormons do when you go to Utah, you got gargoyles. This is what I'm looking at. Angels and people's bodies and statues and all kind of stuff around the whole thing. That's an uncomfortable feeling for me, I'm telling you. Because I don't be around stuff like that.
Yeah.
Everybody else, like they all comfortable. I wasn't comfortable. That's just like the time, get off subject again. I'm going to get off subject. That's like the time when I went to another church, another assembly, another church. They were supposed to be singing songs and they're in there doing miming. Twins doing miming. One on one side, one on the other side. One half the face painted black, the other half painted white. The other one painted white, the other one painted black. So when they're together, all white on the inside, black on the outside, they got these hood things on like Jesuits. And they up there looking like these crows. And with their arms out like this. Now that one I left immediately. I couldn't take it no more. The scriptures tell us in the book of 1 Thessalonians. Go to 1 Thessalonians. I'm off track for a minute, but just say this here. 1 Thessalonians. If I know something before I get myself into it, I'm going to avoid it, abstain from it. Look at 1 Thessalonians 5:22. What does it say?
Abstain from all appearance of evil.
Appearance of it. Forget about it is. Appearance of it. Abstain from it. And that's what I do. If I know something in advance, I'm not going. If I get caught up in it, I'm out of there. So.
Excuse. I'm sorry, Brother Birch.
Hey, Rich.
I just got what I say because I was still talking. I don't see nowhere in the scriptures anyway. We look at the denominations and we baptize in the church, and when they invoke your memberships and stuff like that, and then you get baptized, get back in the church, it's all seem like the same customs of the some of these secret societies, how they set it up, because in the scriptures there's no way, there's no members being a member anyway.
Right. Because the word member, right. Well, the word members in there because it talks about members as far as our body parts are concerned. But there's no membership. There's no members as opposed to what they're referencing in church, members. I tell you what, which one would you all rather do or have? Would you rather be in the membership of a church here or whether it be written in the book of life? Case closed.
I take the book of life for 200.
That's all, and that's what you do. Do you want to be in something that's going to burn up? Because you know it's going to burn up, right? You know anything that's written in the books here on this earth is going to burn up, right? Including the edifices. Everything's burning up here, right? That's where your name at. You want it in that book, or do you want it in that book that's in the book of life? That's the book we want to be in. So whenever somebody tell me about membership, when I got excommunicated out of the church, thank you. Because as long as I get put in the book up there, that's the book I want to be in. I was asked to remove my membership. I did it with delightfulness. Oh, yeah. I didn't know what the plan was when y'all had. Pretty much. Bad as COVID was, it was a blessing. You know how you could take something bad and make good out of it? That's what he did with it. He's the only one that can take something terrible and make something good out of it, the result of it. Only one that can do that. This one right here, this Pope can't do that. As a man, he put his pants and shoes on the same way I do. Breathe the same way I do. He moves about the same way that we all do. Nothing special. So, when you look at this whole entire verse, at the time of the end shall the king of the south, which is Egypt, push at him, king of the north, papacy. And the king of the north, papacy, shall come against him, king of the south, Egypt, like a whirlwind with chariots and with horsemen and with many ships. And he, king of the north, papacy, shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. I used to think that was 3 entities in there. It's only 2. First, looking at this verse, it appears that there are 3 entities. King of the south, king of the north, him, king of the north, and it's just king of the north. Before this, I didn't know that's what it was. But king of the south pushing against king of the north, and him is a separate entity, something else. That's not what that is. At the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him. Who is the him? He's pushing up against the north. And the king of the north shall come against him. Who is that? The south. It's a battle. It's a war between the two. Like a whirlwind, and with a chariot, and with horses, and with many ships. And he, king of the north, papacy, shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. That makes sense as we go through it. So first looking at this verse again, I thought it was 3 entities. But further examination concluded that there are only 2 entities. The power spoken of and clearly identified in verse 36 to 39, is the papacy. That's all we've been talking about, the king of the north. 30 to 35 introduced him and brought him into the picture. 36 to 39 gave a characteristics of him. So technically from 30 to 39, all we've been talking about is the king of the north. That's who he's been. All of a sudden, king of the south comes into the picture again. Why? Because the whole Daniel 11 primarily started way back in verse 5 and 6, talking about the king of the south, then the king of the north. How it transitioned from Medes to Persians, to Grecians, to Roman, now to the papacy. That's what this chapter has been about. The king of the south and king of the north. That's why this morning I told you all to keep that in mind, the king of the north and the king of the south. So, the power spoken of here is that, right? And at the time appointed, starting in verse 30, he appears. So at the time of the end, like any new system, whenever new changes come about and authority is taken away, and in this case, assigned to each kingdom, there was 10 kingdoms, as mentioned in the previous verse, there will be resistance and friction by any opposing parties. That's nominal. That's normal. If somebody come into your house and try to take your stuff, there's going to be friction. If somebody if Canada tried to come in the United States and invade the United States, there's going to be friction. Even if the United States try to invade Mexico, there's going to be friction. Opposition. And that's what's happening here in this verse. You got the king at the time of the end. That's what's key. And at the time, it don't say, and then the time of the end, it says at. So that means when you write sometime at the time of the end of 42 months, you're going to have this happen. King of the south is going to push up against the king of the north. They're going to go at each other. So when you look at this further, right here. So the king of the south is Egypt. We already know who the king of the north is, the papacy. However, the king of the south in history has always crossed the path of Egypt. If you go back, way back to the Mede Persians, Egypt has always been one of the players there. Ptolemy came out of Egypt. Ptolemy was one of those 4 heads. He was the one that came down the Egypt part way back when. When the four heads broke up out of Greece. Remember Daniel 8 talks about how the horn broke off and 4 notable horns came up. 4 heads came up. Cassandra, Leviticus, Ptolemy, and Seleucus. Ptolemy went down to Egypt. And that's where you got Cleopatra's and all those different kings like that. Antiochus, all of them. They were the kings of the south back then. We talked about that last week for last 2 weeks. We've been talking about the history of all that. So, it should be noted that Egypt has played a major role in the scriptures. Egypt is mentioned, if you didn't know, Egypt, and I did not know this until I started going, I did not know that Egypt is mentioned 646 times in the scripture. I did not know Egypt was mentioned that, never paid attention to it. It's mentioned 646 times, and it's in 558 verses. In the scriptures, there's over 880,000 words in the scriptures. 1,189 chapters in the scriptures. 558 verses had the word Egypt in it. I would say they played an intricate role. So, it's mentioned once in Revelation 11:8 as spiritually Egypt. Now, it wasn't talking about literal Egypt, so it's talking about some ways of Egypt. The other times it's mentioned Egypt, it never says spiritually. So that lets me know that it's literally talking about literal Egypt when it speaks about it. And we will see later in verse 42 and 43, it's mentioned again. And we don't even get but 2 more verses down, and then Egypt is mentioned again in 42 and 43, which leads one to look at the significant role Egypt may play in these last days according to the scriptures. So, the king of the south, Egypt. At this point, we see the re-entering of the king of the south, Egypt. And see, if you remember, pagan Rome ruled. Pagan Rome ruled. King of the south, king of the north. But then, remember, they split up, and you had two capitals, Constantinople in the east and Rome in the west. And you remember how we said that in 476 they lost their power because these kingdoms like the Ostrogoths and Visigoths and all of them came in. Rome no longer had the power that it had before. So now we're not talking about pagan Rome anymore. Now the scripture says later on you're going to get a beast that's going to come in the picture, that little horn. He came up in 538, less than 100 years, much less than 100, more like 60 years old. All of a sudden you got a new beast power coming up. That's Papal Rome. And that's the one that's the king of the north, Papal Rome. We start talking about Papal Rome, introduced in verse 29 of Daniel. He started playing in verse 30, and he describes it 36 to 39. All 30 to 39 is all about Papal Rome, the king of the north. Now it brings the king of the south back into the picture again in these last days. So at this point, we see the re-entering of the king of the south, Egypt, into the field of conflict, whom was conquered by Babylon, Mede, Persia, Greece, and pagan Rome. Under papal rule, many crusades were carried out to take back control from the Muslims of the Holy Land. There was a lot of crusades. You remember those crusades you read about in Catholic history, in the history of the Catholic Church? How they sent all these crusades down there. A lot of these crusades, majority of the crusades, but not all the crusades, was dealing with Israel. See, everything you got to deal with Israel, but Egypt was an active role in there because a lot of times they controlled that area. That's why they called him the king of the south. Conflict between Islamic and Christian civilizations dates back to the early expansion of Islam in the 7th and 8th century. Over time, the divide between the two of them became even more tense. It was during the Crusades between you could check it out, 1095 to 1291, that religious motivated military campaigns launched by Christian Europe. See, when they talk about Christian Europe, they're talking about Catholicism, really. Christian Europe, with the primary aim of recapturing Jerusalem and other sacred sites in the Holy Land from Muslim control was the only objective. Egypt, of course, was central to many of these crusades, if not all of them. Okay, they winging their way into this. Throughout scriptural history, Egypt has been multifaceted, reflecting themes of deliverance, judgment, and divine sovereignty only. Egypt first emerges as a place of refuge during the time of Abraham in Genesis 12:10. Due to the severe famine in Canaan, Abraham and Sarai journeyed to Egypt. The most defining moments of Egypt's role in scriptural history is the Exodus, of course. The Israelites, enslavement in Egypt, and their subsequent deliverance by Yah through Moses is a central narrative in the Old Covenant or Testament. So the oppression of the Israelites under Pharaoh's rule, you get it here, sets the stage for Yah's mighty acts of judgment against Egypt, culminating into the 10 plagues. And of course, the 10th one is when he came out on with the firstborn. So, I thought it skipped. Throughout the Bible, throughout the scripture, the Bible, Egypt often symbolized worldly power and reliance on human strength rather than divine guidance. The prophets frequently warned Israel against seeking alliance with Egypt, emphasizing trust in Yah alone. Isaiah 31:1 says, "Woe to them that go down to Egypt for help and stay on horses and trust in chariots, because they are many," because you're looking at how big they are, "and in horsemen because they are very strong, but they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek Yahuwah. This theme underscores the futility of relying on earthly powers instead of Yah. Instead of Yah. The prophets also pronounced judgment against Egypt, reflecting God's sovereignty over all nations. You can go to Ezekiel 29:32, it talks more. It contains a series of oracles against Egypt, highlights its impending downfall due to pride and idolatry. Yet, the prophetic literature also envisions a future where Egypt, along with other nations, will acknowledge Yahuwah. He will make himself known to the Egyptians, and in that day, they will acknowledge Yahuwah. We're all going to acknowledge him. Those that don't make it, especially, they're going to acknowledge it. The rest of us already acknowledge. We're going to keep on acknowledging him. When we're up there, we're going to be acknowledging him, giving him praise. So in the new covenant, Egypt again serves as a place of refuge. Following the birth of Yahushua, Joseph and Mary fled to Egypt to escape King Herod's massacre of the infants in Bethlehem. This event fulfilled a prophecy. Out of Egypt have I called my son. That's first mentioned in Hosea 11:1. Drawing a parallel between Israel's exodus and Yahushua's return from Egypt, symbolizing a new deliverance. Thus, Egypt have played multiple roles, serving as a place refuge to a symbol of oppression. Egypt's interaction with Yah's people highlights themes of deliverance, judgment, and divine sovereignty. Egypt has played an active role in the scriptures. The previous was just a little scriptural background of Egypt. Many believe that Egypt is still considered an atheist country because for one reason their polytheistic stance on worship. It was Egypt that we find many of the alterations of the scriptures, for example, from people like Origen. Today, Egypt is called the Arab Republic of Egypt. It is the largest populated Arab nation out of 22 listed in the Arab League. They are the largest nation. Now, the Arabs are around the world, but we're talking about the Arab nations. Egypt is the largest out of the Arab nations. They have over 100 million people live in Egypt. They are the largest nation. The population of Arab population is 483 million. Of course, that's based on the nations, basically, because there's more than that worldwide. As we recall, there was a recent war between Israel and Palestine, and it was not reported as much the fact that the war was also incited as a result of the red heifer being sent to Israel, Jerusalem, with anticipation of them being offered as symbolism of purifying the area to start the building of the third temple, where presently the Dome of the Rock sits today. From the 2025 IsraelJerusalem.com, one statement in the article that stood out regarding the Dome of the Rock was the following. And this I found was to be interesting. As they're coming up. After conquering, make sure I wouldn't go too far. After conquering Jerusalem, the 9th Islamic Caliph Abd al-Malik built the Dome of the Rock to commemorate his conquest of Judaism capital. That is why it was built on the spot of the Temple Mount, where the Jewish temple of Jerusalem has stood now, have once stood. For the next 1,300 years, the Dome of the Rock served as a flag of victory for whoever conquered Jerusalem. When the Crusaders captured Jerusalem in 1099, they turned it into a Catholic church. Catholicism, for you all don't know, Catholicism owned land in Jerusalem. You all can look it up. They own property in Jerusalem. They have their influence in Jerusalem, okay? All right. When Saladin recaptured Jerusalem in 1187, he turned it back into a Muslim shrine. So they're going back and forth. Had a little back and forth history. I didn't even know this, but they didn't have a back and forth history with this. Okay? Now, when the Israeli army captured the Temple Mount during that 6-day war in 1967, Eric Achman and Ezra Amni, 2 Israelite paratroopers, climbed up the Dome of the Rock and hung the Israeli flag on top of it until Moshe Dayan, the then Israelite defense minister, ordered it to be taken down, saying, "Do you want to see the Middle East on fire?" And that's what he said then. Okay. The Israelite government, this is the part when that video, I had us going to show the video, but you all remember the video. So I'm like, we don't have to show the video. Remember that little 5-minute video we showed? Okay. Remember how the lady was saying she was very adamant? She was very adamant that the Dome of the Rock was coming down. She said, oh, that's coming down. And the temple, you remember that part of it? And she was even bowing down praying. Remember that? Okay. Now I know why she's so adamant. Besides the fact this is Israel we're talking about. Now I know why. Because the Israeli government, that video talks about how the government is not necessarily behind this, right? Listen, guys, everything you hear ain't true. We can't believe everything we hear. The Israeli government has declared the area where the Dome of the Rock is as sovereignty over the Temple Mount. They have sovereignty over that. They have control over that area. Even though the Muslims there, they only have them there, they handed it over to them for management to the Muslims. They only manage it. But the sovereignty of it, the land itself of it, is Israel's. They can take it anytime they want to. The government, the Israeli government controls. This is not, see, I used to think when we first started talking about this red heifer and the Dome of the Rock, I was thinking that was land of theirs. Not to say they can't still come and take it, but I thought it was land of theirs, of the Muslims, the Arabs. That's not their land. This makes it even more easier to do it. Israel, the government, it's declared sovereign. That means there ain't no doubt about it. That's their land. But we're going to let you manage it. And guess who's managing it? Guess what country is managing it? Over there. Jordan, right next to them. I got something on them too. Right next to them. So the Israeli government declares sovereignty over the Temple Mount, but in order to keep peace, handed over its management to a Muslim trust led by the Ministry of the Religious Affairs and Trust of Jordan. Israel's Muslim neighbor to the east. Surprisingly, the Orthodox Jews supported this decision. So now it's more apparent why the woman in the video, the one in the video below, was so adamant on the temple being built where the Dome of the Rock is presently located. The Israel government declared it sovereign. It is theirs. It's their land. Like we're in here, this ain't our land, right? We're renting this, right? So they're renting it. That means this is somebody else's. Of course, now we know overall the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof. But we're talking about the fact that this land right now is somebody else's. We're just renting it. They have declared that land that the Dome of the Rock is in is all under Israeli government control. It's theirs. Was that great?
Yeah. So those guards that they had, you remember in that video they had guards.
Those 2 guards. Yes.
So they belong to Jordan?
I believe they belong to the Arabs. I don't know if they're Jordan, but they belong to the Arabs. Muslims.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know which nation. I would assume it's Jordan, but I don't know for sure. But yes, no, those wasn't Israelis guards. Those are Arabs, because that mosque or that Dome of the Rock, that's all Muslim.
Right.
They're going back and forth. That, but they just managing it to keep the peace. But pretty soon, when they say peace, Because I was dealing with Yahushua. So when we think about Egypt, because in this verse 40, it says that the king of the south pushed at him the king of the north. So when you think about Egypt in this verse, in a broader sense, it's the Arabs that are more Sunni. See, they got the Sunni Arabs and they got the Shiite Arabs. The Sunni-speaking Arabs, that is against Christianity, they are more representative of the majority of the Arab countries, like Egypt. Like I said, there's over 109 million out of 476 million that's in the countries there. Total Sunni-speaking Arab nation. They're the ones that's more against this than even the Shia Muslims or Arabs speaking. Arab is the tongue, Arab speaking. So attempts like bringing in red heifers incited a war. What about tearing down the Dome of the Rock and building the third temple? Would that cause friction? That, you know, it's getting ready to get, it's getting ready to be interesting. I'll just put it that way. Thus the king of the south, Egypt, pushed at him, king of the north, papacy. The word push means the same meaning as Daniel 8:4. Pushing means to war against. It's coming to be a war. It's going to be a war down there. And I'm not talking about the one with Palestinians and Israelites. I'm talking about the war that's coming up. This Dome of the Rock thing they get ready to tear down. The Arabs warred against the king of the north, papacy. But of course, the king of the north came against the king of the south, Egypt, like a whirlwind. Whirlwind, H8175, meaning to storm, fear, hurl as a storm, come like, take away as with a whirlwind. As before, in the past kings of the north and south, the war centered around Israel. Throughout scriptures, the world rulers throughout history has had an impact on the status of Israel. And it appears the conflict here in verse 40 is no different as verse 41 points to that very fact. Verse 41 that we're going to get to points to the very fact how the glorious land is part of this. It reiterates that. So the papacy does not fight his wars. It always have had arms stand on his part, which it tells us in verse 31. Arms stand on your part. Somebody's representing you. Somebody is helping you. Arms standing on his part. Verse 31 mentions that. So, with chariots and with horsemen and with many ships, and he, king of the north, papacy, shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. This didn't say the king of the south is entering the king of the north. The king of the north is entering the king of the south. The north is entering the south. The word chariot, H407393. No, it says with chariots and with horsemen and with many ships. It makes it sound like it's almost antiquated. But I just want you to understand that the word chariots, H7393, means a vehicle, a team, cavalry. By analogy, a rider. As a single note, airplanes and submarines are considered vehicles. Horsemen, H6571. By implication, a driver or collectively a cavalry. Ships, actual ships. That makes sense, right? Because you're right there in the Mediterranean. Submarines, airplanes. Oh, it's going to be a fury. It's obvious who the main arm standing on his papacy part would be. The earth beast of Revelation 13:11, United States. Entering countries and overflowing them means conquering. Conquering them and passing over. H5674, or by or through, do away, take away them. It's going to be a war down there. It's coming, but it's not like the regular wars like we think. See, this is the reason. This one here got something to do with the end time, this temple and all this stuff being set up. But it's going to cause friction. It's going to cause a war. So, Daniel 11:41. He shall enter also into the glorious land. He. Who is the he? King of the north. He shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown. But these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom, Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. Now, why are they mentioned in there? But we'll get to that. So, shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown. The key to understanding why the king of the north, papacy, will enter into Israel is to help us to get a better picture of the coming events in prophecy. The abomination of desolation will be set up or placed in Jerusalem. And this was not going to be without conflict or resistance from the Arabs. This eventual fulfillment of prophecy will at some point afterwards usher in the false light. Eventually after it's done, the false light, which we know is Satan himself and his angels, deception to the uttermost, will be revealed. But are we ready for this? This is going to happen, guys. All this stuff is going to happen. It's coming. It's just a matter of time. It's coming. We're right around the corner. Look at this here. But these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom, even Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. Digging further than that, I was kind of amazed when I saw this. I'm thinking different countries. Kingdom of Edom, the kingdom of Moab, and the kingdom of Ammon are all Jordan. They are all Jordan. There ain't no other countries, Iraq, Iran, none of that. All three of those is now present day Jordan. It was the Edomites, Moabites, and the Ammonites that Yah told the children of Israel not to distress nor take their land for possession. Edom was located southwestern between the Dead Sea and the Gulf of Aqaba, now southwestern Jordan. Moab is southern Jordan, and Ammon was east of the Jordan River, now the kingdom of Jordan. It's very important that you see Jordan. You see how it stands where Jordan is? And here's Israel, here's Jordan. Here's the ones here that are managing this whole Dome of the Rock thing. Just this country right here. And I think about this sometimes, and I go back. Was it not Jordan? Whenever there was conflict going on, when you think about the Iraq War and things of that sort, Jordan always kind of sided with Israel, United States, sort of. It was always the neutral one, more so or less. Jordan never really took sides, if I remember correctly. And here they are. This picture you see, kingdom of Edom, kingdom of Moab, kingdom of Ammonites. Here. See, when the children of Israel was coming from Egypt, this is the route that they took. They came through Edom. That's from Esau. They were promised land that Yah gave them. That's why they couldn't touch anything in Edom. They couldn't take any of this land. They couldn't take any of this land of Moabites. Because you all remember who Moabites and Ammon was, right? Those are the ones that slept with their father Lot. They were given land. They were given land, and the children of Israel were not, according to the scriptures, they were not to take any of these lands. This is the land they used to come over to Jordan. So just like then, Jordan was rescued. I call it Jordan, but this is what it was.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
You know, it's how this is coming up now. 'Cause I always thought Jordan was like part of Israel. I always thought they was Israelites.
Oh
For
no,
some
they're a
reason.
separate country.
Yeah, I know that now, but I always knew they were separate, but I don't know for whatever reason, I always thought like they was good guys. I always thought they was with Israel, or
That's what I'm saying. That might be the reason why you're thinking like that, because Jordan seemed to be one of the ones that's always on the side of Israel.
Yeah,
Sort of.
yeah,
Yeah, they do. And plus, I remember growing up, it seemed like when we heard songs or heard anything talked about Israel, Jordan was somewhere in the picture.
exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but no, there's two separate countries.
Yeah, yeah.
And what I didn't know was and I thought I thought part of Edom was maybe part of Saudi Arabia or something. But all of Edom, Moab, and Ammonites were all present day Jordan.
Wow.
One country right here. That's
Oh,
what they are.
family.
See where the arrow is pointing? That's what they are. That's it. That's very relevant. It's very relevant there. Because when you read that, when you go back to Daniel 11, you see what it says is that he shall enter into the glorious land and many countries shall be overthrown. There's going to be countries that's going to be Arab nations are going to be overthrown. But look what it says though. It says, but these shall escape out of his land, out of his hand, even Edom, Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. And that makes sense because Jordan has always been kind of like friendly with them too. They always been there kind of friendly with them, if I remember right. So they're going to escape. They're not going to be brutalized like these other nations, that's all these Arab nations that come in to fight against the king of the north. It really started to make sense. When I started investigating this and found out this is really Jordan, floodgates really opened up then. It's Jordan. Not 3 or 4 nations, Jordan. All 3 of them was Jordan. They had to come over the kingdom of Edom, then they had to come over the kingdom of Moab, and then they had to come over the kingdom of Ammon to get over the Jordan. Remember, they had to go over the Jordan, cross the Jordan, and get over and start fighting over the other side of Jordan. See, the other side of Jordan where Jericho was at, if I remember correctly. It was on the other side. Right on the other side. Let them alone. Don't mess with them. 42. Somebody read 42. Somebody got 42?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
He shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape.
Not escape. That is the countries of the world. In verse 41, the word countries can mean the earth as a large or partitivity, partitively, of a land, a partial part of the land or the whole land. Whereby partitively or part of a whole would best represent this verse, since only certain countries would be overthrown. But in this verse 42, the word countries most likely references other countries or more of the world involved in this outside of the verse 41 that will be affected or involved with the war in the Middle East. See, there's going to be more countries outside. And then listen to that video about Putin. They going to him and they going all over the place, getting approval of this red heifer thing. It's going to be more than just, United States going to be the key factor, but it's going to be just like it was. You all remember what it was when they attacked Iraq? Remember when they went to Iraq? Some other nations was on their side. Remember that? Other countries on their side. Same thing going to happen again. This is a religious war, believe it or not. It's military, but it's religious. That's what it's based off of. So Egypt shall not escape. Egypt, being the center focus or king of the south, would not escape. They would be overthrown. The relationship between the papacy and Egypt has been complex throughout history. Egypt reaffirms its support for the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people, and it has a strong relationship with the United States, but removing a sacred site, Dome of the Rock, of the Arabs would cause tension. Most of the Sunni Arabs, the one I was telling you about that have frictions against the Christians, against them, is in Egypt. Egypt has a big population of Sunni. That's the majority of them. They have all kinds of things dealing with killing Christians and stuff over there in Egypt. They say it's supposed to be getting better, but different things going on over there. Well, they attacked Christians over there in Egypt. You guys go into the history book, you see. So here's Egypt right here. The largest, and when I say largest, people-wise, of all the Arab nations, and there's 22 of them. So, somebody read 43.
I got it.
Okay.
Daniel 11,
44. Yes.
43 says, but he shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt, and the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his death.
He is the king of the north. And we think about that for a second. Would you not say that the king of the north is loaded up with precious stones and gold and silver? And he agrees, doesn't he feed off all that? We just talked about it a few minutes ago. Gold, silver, and precious stones. So here we go. Egypt known for emeralds. Some of this stuff I ain't never heard of before. But some of them is precious stones. Like it says, known for emeralds, lapis lazuli, and carnelian I heard of, and jasper, and malachite, and quartz, and turquoise. The Libyans are known for gold, is known for its deep symbolism and significance in Libyan culture. Ethiopians, the ancient Ethiopians were always wealthy due to their gold mines in their mountains and their wealth in cattle and ivory and hides and ebony. Also, traffic from South Africa entered Egypt through Ethiopia. Ethiopia is known for its diamonds, sapphires, industrial minerals such as tantalum, kaolin, and soda ash. The country is also rich in gold, iron, nickel, copper, zinc, lead, titanium, limestone, marble, and precious and semi-precious stones like opal, garnet, sapphire, and emerald. Ethiopia has a significant deposit of at least 9 gemstones, including opal, corundum, beryl, garnet, peridot, quartz species, and tourmaline. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. This is referring to the economic power that these countries have. The papacy will control all trade in the world through such laws as the prohibition to buy or sell without the mark of the beast. Remember, that's coming. Everything is lining up. Guys. It's all lining up. He's going to take control of all this. Tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. This is a loud cry of the angels of Revelation 18, which comes against the papacy attempt to control the entire world and bring it under its false teaching. This group who are giving a loud cry are the only ones who stand in the way of full control for the papacy. Thus, their strong scriptural message under the power of the latter rain of the Ruach HaKodesh causes much consternation, feeling of anxiety and dismay, and frustration for the papacy. As seen before, many will not accept this message and escape from under its tyranny. Many people will, just like in the Dark Ages. So, this tidings, like example, Ezekiel 43:1-2, the message of the Master shineth from the way of the east. Revelation 7:2, the sealing angel comes from the way of the east. Thus, the sealing message symbolized by the angel is seen to come from Yah by the way of the east. And this is verse 44. 16:12, the deliverers of Yah's people will come from the kings of the east, which symbolizes the return of Yahushua HaMashiach. Isaiah 14:13, the throne of Yah is the sides of the north. This, no telling what they're going to do when they built this temple. I wouldn't be surprised he don't sit on the side of the north in the temple, because he's trying to act like he's Yah. Can you read 44? Verse 44.
But the tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly to make away many.
Couple of things came to mind on this here. But the final death decree against those who will not accept to worship the beast in his image. Remember, the mark of the beast represents the people, the name of the beast represents the papacy, and the number of his name represents the kings of the earth. This happens after there is no more mercy from Yah. However, keep in mind that before the death decree, the 144,000 who went forth passing the gospel, like the 12 apostles, will be killed prior to mercy closing, just like the apostles and their bodies laid out in the street. Speaking of the 144,000, laid out in the street with no one to bury them. So there was no sympathy or empathy for them at all. In Revelation 11, 9, and 10, we went over this before. The beast system was furious while they lived because of their message. Then they were happy when they were persecuted. They were happy when they were persecuted. 1 Thessalonians 5:3, for when they shall say peace and safety, Lisa, then such destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Last verse, Daniel 11:45. Somebody read that for me. Daniel 11:45.
And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain, yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him.
Based on prophecy, this starting or setting up the abomination of desolation, this third temple of Daniel 12:11, will occur in 2027. That's the starting of it. And the completion of the third temple will be sometime at the end of 1290. 1290 days. 1145 of Daniel. We know that the papacy will get his power back sometime in 2027, according to Revelation 13, 3-5. So in 2027, he would get his power back. That is the beginning of the time of the end. The end of the time of the end is when his tabernacle will be up. So the tabernacle of his palace would be planted with the king being the papacy. This planting of the tabernacle will be according to Daniel 11:45 between the seas and the glorious holy mountain, in other words, Jerusalem. Then the angel of light will appear sometime afterwards. 2 Corinthians 11:13-15, we read that before. He would appear as an angel of light. It's going to be tremendous deception. But we know not to follow it. Right, Lisa? We talked about that earlier. Those that would go to where his counterfeit tabernacle and worship system is set up in Israel, the glorious holy mountain, because in that one video it talked about how they calling everybody to come to give honor and everything to this sacrificing of the red heifers and everything. They're going to do the same thing once they build Jerusalem too. Not Jerusalem, but built this temple, this so-called temple, false temple. You go there, you're going to be deceived. Matthew 24:23-26. Both Jerusalem and Zion in scriptures represent Kadesh, or holy mountain. Daniel 9:16 and Joel 3:17. Thus Jerusalem and Zion are the same. If you notice in verse 45, if you notice that in verse 45, but the very next verse is Daniel 12:1, is the coming of Yahushua HaMashiach. That's another way how you know this thing is coming right to a head, to end. You get out of 11:45 and go straight into Michael stands up, and Michael is Yahushua. So, yet he shall come to an end, and none shall help him. As outlined in Revelation 18, when the judgment of Yah falls upon modern mystery Babylon for her sins, there will be none to support and defend her then. Throughout her career, she has always relied on others. This is mystery Babylon thing. Others to wage a war for her, but this time there will be no one, and she will be destroyed eventually. We know that because when you go to Revelation 11, not 11, 11 verse 19. When you go to Revelation 19:20, you'll see that the beast and the false prophet is thrown into a lake of fire. So they're going to be destroyed. At this point, the angel Gabriel, having outlined the history from the time of Persia, very beginning, the very first verse, open up talking about there is the Mede and Persian, Then he goes into Persian. So at this point, the angel Gabriel have outlined the history from the time of Persia to the time of the coming of Yahushua HaMashiach in that verse 1 of Daniel 12. In Matthew 1, 18 and 21, delineated, outlined all the secular events. He proceeds to go back to the initial Jewish interaction with Rome and brings down a direct line of events to the final triumph of the assembly of Yah and the coming of Yahushua HaMashiach. 1 Thessalonians 4, 13, 18, we already know. For his people from all nations. He's going to save from all nations. And this last chart is a culmination of everything we done talked about. This is the last thing that's coming up here. This is the culmination of everything we have talked about, these three parts. Here's the chart. Everything we done talked about is charted out here. All the way back, 4,000, and I added an extra thing in here, 4,004 to 3970 BY, that 33 and a half years, that's the similarity that we know the first Adam and the second Adam. The only thing that they have in agreement is the amount of years they live. Nothing else is the same. Nothing else is the same between Yahushua HaMashiach, the second Adam, and Adam, the first Adam. The only thing that's similar is the years, 33 and a half. So that was without sin, 33 and a half years. Then sin began in 3970 BY. So the fall of man, from the fall of man all the way to summer 2031 is 6,000 years. Okay. And that's what all this is here, right here, these two. Then between 3970 BY and 31 AD, or after death, you had these down here. Persia ruled. Persia fell and Greece ruled. The four heads ruled Alexander the Great territory. Then you had the four heads fell, and then pagan Rome ruled. That was all between this time. Then you come over here to this guy. You come over to this guy between 31 AD to 2025, where we're at now. The start of these things. Western pagan Rome. They ended in 476. That's when they ended. They fell, and there was no world ruler because the foot that was mixed where iron and clay now ruled. There was no strong or weak nation. They all took and they ransacked Western Rome, pagan Rome. So only when it was standing was Eastern Rome, Constantinople, which is modern day Turkey. So here we are, 476. Then 62 years later, that's when you have pagan Rome absorbed into the papal system. Papal Rome took over, 538 AD. And then papal Rome was wounded and fell 1,260 years later in 1798 between here. And there's other things in history, but I'm just putting down the things that we have actually went over. We have actually went over these things in Daniel. That's why it expanded more on the history of it. So here we are now, 2025 AD. The daily sacrifice is taken away, and we know that means to exalt. That's what they're doing now. They're getting ready to try to exalt this deceptive sacrifice. They're ready to exalt that. And then about 965 days later, there's going to be the daily sacrifice. They're going to take it away because then they're going to start building the temple. That's what the whole purification of this red heifer is for. That's why they're doing it. Because they're getting ready, they're purifying, getting themselves ready to start building this. And that's what they're getting ready to do. They're getting ready to start building what we would consider the abomination of desolation. They're getting ready to start it. This false temple, they're getting ready to start it. Worship, man down here, believing that Yahushua HaMashiach is coming here to this earth, ushering them in by building this third temple. He's not touching this earth. He ain't gonna touch this filthy earth. But this is what they do. I've heard many people say, well, we're going to Jerusalem. We're going to Jerusalem. You're messing up. You're messing up. You do that. This is what they're doing here. And then it says, waiteth and cometh. So that means whoever waiteth and cometh for this blessing right here. There's a blessing right here. Kadesh, blessed. It's going to be happiness at the end of the 2300 days, because that's when Yahushua comes back and takes us back with him. That's going to be a great moment. It's going to be a blessing, right? So then, this all in 2027, beginning of it. Then the winter of 2027, the papacy womb was healed. This is 30 days in here. His womb was healed. Satan gave him his power. He rules for 42 months. The children in Revelation, in Daniel 12:11 said that the Yah's people were scattered. They were scattered. People were scattered. And it says the people were taken away. They were beaten asunder, just like it was in the Dark Ages. Same thing is going to happen. But there's going to be mercy there too, but people are going to die as well, just like it did in the Dark Ages. So you had that going on in the winter of 2027 AD, but then 3.5 years later, the 1260, 2031 AD, in the wintertime, this is when we projected to be. Scriptures tell us over in Daniel 12:7, these things will be finished. This right here, is the time of the end. This is the beginning of the time of the 3.5 years. This is the end of the time of the end. Right here. It is right here. Mercy ends. Judgment comes. He that is unjust, let him be unjust still. He that is filthy, let him be filthy still. He that is holy, let him be holy still. He that is righteous, let him be righteous still. All that. Now the tabernacle is finished. It's done now. It's setting up. It's up. Somewhere in here, before 2131, you're going to have that 144,000 that's going to be killed. That I believe is going to happen a little bit before probation, before mercy closes. They're going to be killed in here. It has to, because nobody's going to be dying of Yah's people after mercy closes. Because we're going to be saved, right? Psalms 91 tells us what? 1,000 will fall on one side, 10,000 fall on this side, but they won't come nigh thee. That's in this period in here. That's in the period of the plagues. But we do believe that there's like a 5-day period in here. After this, there's like a 5-day period in here. The chart I showed earlier, comparing it with the days of Noah, that there's going to be a death decree, and then Satan is going to appear. So the order. So that's going to happen in this 5-day period. And I do believe that right here is where mercy is going to close at this point. Now you're going to have these plagues. That's all 45 days. There you go. And then at the end, when the scriptures talk about it, over there in Daniel 8:14, where it says you got these 22,300 days and the sanctuary should be cleansed. It's going to be cleansed here at the end of this time here. Oh, it's going to be cleansed. Because the righteous is going to be with him and the wicked. The wheat and tares are growing together now. But then when the harvest time comes, see, this is the harvest time, the cleaning part, separating. This is the harvest here. We're going to be blessed, those that make it back with him. They're going to be blessed. This is a wonderful time, guys. So that is what we just talked about in the last 3 weeks starts basically right here all the way to the end. I added this part here because this is where sin began at, right here. But inside of here is different events that happen that we covered already. So that is what we just covered in chapter 11. It's a lot. So I don't know, anybody have any comments, any questions, any statements, anything? We're at the end of it now. I call it prophetic history to the end, Persia to the end, Daniel 11. What's that, Rich?
He sent this to the email.
Who's that?
Right here.
What do you say, Eric? Oh, yeah. I'll send it to you. I got to fix it up and send it to you. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll send it to you. See, this is what I'm talking about. By the grace of Yah, we're going to sit down. Some of us are going to have to sit down And we got to work this thing out just like something similar to this, but only it's taking text, basically, and just taking the text out of Ezekiel and Daniel and Isaiah and Revelation and Thessalonians and all these texts, and lining the text up where they belong at. And that chart's going to be humongous, probably. It's going to be bigger than any chart in here because it's going to be pieces, because you're talking about a lot of verses, a lot of text. But hopefully that would help us to be able to line up everything according to where somebody can follow it. That's going to take a long time too. So I'm just hoping by the grace, by the end of the year, we can have something like this done, because we want to do this Revelation again. We want to do all the chapters in Revelation again. Remember the time when we did Revelation, it was one chapter a week. So that's 22 weeks. And it's going to take time to put all this together. And these charts will help put that together too. But there's a lot more. Like all of this would be inclusive in there. There's so much more. But I think it's much easier if I'm sitting up here looking at this right here, and I see this, and then they order the next thing, then the next thing, then the next thing, until it leads to this. That'll help out a lot. And that's what I'm praying by the grace of Yah, that we could put together so and give to people so they can have that. But this is just Daniel 11 by itself. It covered a gigantic span of history. Quite a bit. A lot of history. It covered quite a bit. So, anybody else have anything else?
I just want to thank you, Jim, for your putting in your time and effort and bringing this to us. I thank Yah for being Yah, and I thank Yah for blessing you and empowering you to do this work. It's really been a blessing to us.
Well, I thank you guys for that. Yah, of course, he gets all the credit. And the thing is about this, I feel 100% confidence with this. So I ain't gonna tell you guys nothing I don't feel confident with, because that'd be on my conscience. My conscience bothers me when I say the wrong thing. You understand what I'm saying? I feel 100% confident with this. It is everything. As I was doing this, as I was working on this, I kept praying and asking Yah to help get a clear understanding of all this. And then Eric will make a little statement, and I heard something from Lisa, then I heard something from this person, then I heard things myself, and everything just kind of like, that's what Yah does. You know what I mean? He gives you things in different avenues, different ways of doing things. And I give him all the praise and all the glory because, like I say, Rich mentioned it last week, because he's seen the original chapter 11 that I had done on Daniel. Ain't nothing like that. This thing is drastically changed. See, that's what happens. But if you're in a system, you pretty much stay locked into that system. You got to come out of the box. We as Yah's people had to definitely come out of the box. You know why? Because coming out of the box would be like any of us that came out of the denomination we were in. That's coming out of the box. Any denomination we were in before, now we in something else. That means we came out of that system. Now, we want to make sure we go in the right system, but we still came out of something. And Yah wants us to grow. He don't want us to stay stagnated. 30 years from now, you're talking about the same thing, and you don't even know where you got it from. It's just because you heard everybody talking about it. I had a lot of things like that too. You say a lot of stuff, you don't even, and there were some things I just wasn't feeling comfortable with, but I just didn't want to dig into that, because you don't want to go against the system, right? Sometimes I did go against it, but that's here and there. But I want to thank Yah. I thank him for everything. And guys, I just pray that there's more coming. There's more coming when we get to this. I know Eric has a treat when we get to these revelations. He got a treat for each one of the revelations. So I ain't gonna tell y'all what it is. Some of y'all might already know. But I just thank Yah for everything. And I hope we just keep on growing, keep studying, everybody. This, to me, was one of the hardest chapters I've worked on in this whole entire scripture. This and Revelation 17. These two were the hardest prophecy chapters. There's some other prophecy chapters, but those two is probably the toughest for me. Those were the toughest, and Yah revealed it. He reveals things to you. So if nobody has anything else, let's stand for closing prayer. All right. Dear Father in heaven, we come before you this day. We thank you so much for your grace and your mercy. We thank you for everything that you have provided for us this day. We pray, Yah, as time moves on, that we become even more enlightened. We have even more details of things that's coming. We know you would not leave us in the dark, but we have to be seeking you. We have to be willing to want to accept and open up your word and study it so that you can mold us to the way you want us to go, Father. We pray that you forgive us of our sins, teach us your will, give us understanding and wisdom and knowledge. Help us to be able to know the difference between right and wrong. Help us to be on that strong meat, especially in these last days. Especially in these last days. So again, I thank you and I pray that you be with each and last one of us here, that we may make it home safely to our destination until we all meet again. And if it's in your will, we thank you and we give you all the praise in your Son, Yahushua HaMashiach's name we do pray. So be it. So be it. Amen.